A former gay man's extraordinary journey to the afterlife changed everything he believed about love, identity, and eternity. His encounter with God revealed a truth that would transform his life forever. My name is Thaddeus Jackson, and I'm 47 years old. I live in a cozy apartment in Burlington, Vermont, where I've spent the last 15 years working as a graphic designer. Until recently, I was proudly out and living what I thought was my authentic life. Growing up in a conservative family, I always felt different. By my teenage years, I knew I was attracted to men, but I kept it hidden. College was my liberation. I finally came out and embraced who I thought I was meant to be. I became active in the LGBTQ+ community, attended Pride events, and even helped organize them. I had a long-term partner, Marcus, and we'd been together for 8 years. We had plans to get married next spring. Life seemed perfect on the surface. We had successful careers, a beautiful home, and a supportive circle of friends. But deep down, something always felt off. I'd grown up in a Christian household, and despite pushing those beliefs aside, they never completely left me. Sometimes, late at night, I'd remember my grandmother's prayers and feel a strange emptiness I couldn't explain. The day everything changed started normally enough. I was working on a big project for a new client, a local brewery wanting to rebrand their image. The deadline was tight, and I'd been pulling all-nighters to get it done. I'd been ignoring the occasional chest pains and dizziness, attributing them to stress and too much coffee. That morning, I decided to take my work to Maple Grove Park. It was my favorite spot, quiet with old maple trees providing perfect shade. I set up my laptop at a picnic table, got my coffee out, and started working. The pain started subtly, a tingling in my left arm that I tried to shake off. Then came the pressure in my chest, different from the usual stress-related discomfort. I stood up, thinking a walk might help, but the world started spinning. The last thing I remember was reaching for my phone and watching my coffee cup fall in slow motion. What I didn't know then was that I had a rare condition called spontaneous coronary artery dissection, a tear in the wall of my heart artery. The doctors later told me it was likely triggered by chronic stress and poor sleep habits. The combination of overwork, anxiety about my upcoming wedding, and unresolved inner conflicts had literally broken my heart. As I lay there on the damp grass, my consciousness began to fade. The last things I registered were the rustle of maple leaves above me, a jogger's panicked voice calling 911, and a strange sense of relief, as if something I'd been running from had finally caught up with me. The park maintenance worker who found me later said I had no pulse for over 4 minutes. The paramedics would arrive in 6. In those minutes between life and death, I would experience something that would completely transform my understanding of everything I thought I knew about love, identity, and purpose. The moment my heart stopped, everything changed. There wasn't a tunnel of light like I'd heard about. Instead, I felt myself being pulled upward, as if gravity had reversed. The physical pain vanished instantly, replaced by a sensation I can only describe as complete weightlessness. I found myself floating above my body. I could see everything with perfect clarity, the park maintenance worker performing CPR, my laptop still open on the picnic table, my spilled coffee seeping into the grass. But what struck me most was how peaceful I felt, watching this scene unfold beneath me. Then came the acceleration. I was moving faster than anything I'd ever experienced, yet there was no fear. The physical world began to fade, replaced by what looked like layers of reality peeling away. Colors I'd never seen before, dimensions I couldn't comprehend with my earthly mind. It was like seeing the universe's source code. As I moved through this space, I became aware of other presences around me. They weren't exactly visible, but I could sense them. Countless souls, all moving in different directions. Some were heading upward like me, while others seemed to be descending into darkness. The descending souls emanated such profound despair that it made me shudder. Suddenly I found myself in what I can only describe as a vast courtroom, but it wasn't made of physical materials. The walls, if you could call them that, seemed to be made of pure light and truth. Before me stood a being of such magnificent light that I couldn't look directly at it. I knew instantly this was Jesus Christ, but not the gentle figure from Sunday school paintings. This was the King of Kings, the judge of all creation. To my right appeared what looked like a screen, but it was more like a window into my entire life. Every moment began playing simultaneously, and I could comprehend them all at once. I saw myself as a child, hearing about Jesus from my grandmother. I saw myself in college, deliberately turning away from those teachings. I saw every person I'd influenced to embrace the gay lifestyle, every time I'd mocked traditional Christian values. But what hurt most was seeing the pain I'd caused others. I saw my parents crying after I came out, not because they hated me, but because they feared for my eternal soul. I saw young people I'd encouraged to live their truth, leading them further from God's plan. Each scene was accompanied by perfect understanding of how my actions had rippled through time, affecting countless lives. Then came the most difficult part. I saw my relationship with Marcus not through my own justifications, but through God's perfect truth. What I'd called love was revealed as a distortion of God's design for human relationships. It wasn't hate or bigotry that made these relationships wrong. It was simply that they went against the fundamental order of creation. A voice spoke then, not in words exactly, but directly into my being. I love you, my child, but you have led others astray. You have taken my gift of love and twisted it into something it was never meant to be. The love in that voice was overwhelming, pure, perfect, and complete. It made every romantic relationship I'd ever had seem like pale imitations, mere shadows of true love. I understood then that God's love wasn't about restriction or denial. It was about fulfillment of our true purpose. The voice continued, and each word resonated through my entire being. Your identity is not in your sexuality, but in being my creation, made in my image. You have built your life on a foundation of sand, seeking validation from a world that cannot give you what only I can provide. I saw then how I'd constructed my entire identity around my sexuality, making it an idol that replaced God in my life. The LGBTQ+ community had become my church, pride flags my religious symbols, and self-expression my gospel. But now I could see how empty it all was compared to the magnificent truth before me. The being of light showed me more visions. I saw countless souls in hell, many who had lived similar lifestyles to mine. They weren't there because God hated them. They were there because they had rejected the truth until the very end. Their suffering wasn't just physical. It was the eternal agony of knowing they had traded eternal joy for temporary pleasures. I was shown specifically how the modern world had twisted God's truth. I saw how the enemy had used media, entertainment, and even some churches to normalize what God had clearly forbidden. I understood that true love meant wanting God's best for people, even when it meant standing against popular opinion. Then came a series of revelations about other faiths. I saw how Islam, despite its claims, led people away from the true Christ. I witnessed souls who had followed Muhammad's teachings arriving in hell, realizing too late they had been deceived. The same was true for every other non-Christian religion. They were all paths leading away from salvation. The being of light then showed me something that broke my heart. Young people using platforms like OnlyFans, trading their dignity for money and attention. I saw their souls arriving in the afterlife, horrified to realize how they had degraded the bodies God had given them. The temporary wealth and validation they'd received seemed meaningless compared to the eternal consequences they now faced. My church, the voice said, has been given the truth. The Orthodox faith preserves my teachings unchanged, yet many of my children ignore this gift, choosing instead to follow their own desires or water down my word to match the world's expectations. I understood then that salvation wasn't just about believing in Jesus in some vague way. It required following him completely, participating in the sacraments he established through his church, and living a life of good works flowing from true faith. The idea of once saved, always saved was revealed as a dangerous oversimplification. The being of light showed me how reincarnation was a lie that kept people from understanding the urgency of their one life on earth. You have one life, the voice declared, one chance to choose. There is no coming back, no second try. What you decide in this life determines your eternal destiny. As I stood before the divine presence, I felt the weight of every decision I'd ever made. The being of light then showed me what my future would look like if I continued on my current path. The images were terrifying. not just my own eternal separation from God, but the impact I would have on others. You have influenced many to follow the path of destruction, the voice said. Each soul you led astray carries eternal consequences. But I offer you a choice now. Return and speak the truth, or remain in your deception. I saw two possible futures unfold before me. In one, I returned to my old life, married Marcus, and continued promoting what I now knew was a lie. I watched as people I influenced rejected God's truth, one by one choosing eternal separation from Him. In the other future, I saw myself accepting God's truth, no matter the cost. It wouldn't be easy. I saw myself losing friends, facing rejection, being called hateful and bigoted. But I also saw people being saved through my testimony. The being of light then revealed something that shook me to my core, the spiritual reality behind the LGBTQ+ movement. I saw dark spirits actively working to promote and normalize these lifestyles, not because they cared about human happiness, but because they knew it would lead souls away from God. The rainbow, which God had created as a symbol of His covenant, had been co-opted as a symbol of pride, the very sin that had caused Lucifer's fall. "Look," the voice commanded, and I saw the spiritual battle raging on earth. It was like watching two different realities simultaneously. The physical world where people went about their daily lives, and the spiritual realm where angels and demons fought for human souls. Every pride parade, every gender transition, every same-sex wedding was celebrated by dark forces, not because they brought happiness, but because they led people further from God's truth. Then I was shown the Orthodox Church, and I understood why it had preserved the true faith while other denominations fell into error. I saw how the Holy Spirit had guided it through the centuries, protecting it from the compromises that had weakened other churches. The sacraments weren't just rituals, they were actual channels of God's grace, essential for spiritual life. The being of light then revealed the true nature of gender and sexuality. I saw how God had created male and female as complementary parts of a whole, each reflecting different aspects of His nature. Same-sex attraction, I understood, wasn't part of God's original design, but a result of humanity's fallen nature, like any other temptation that needed to be resisted, not embraced. "Your struggle is not unique," the voice said gently. "Every soul faces temptations, but I provide the grace to overcome them through my church, through the sacraments, through prayer and fasting. Your identity is not in your desires, but in being my child." Just when I thought the revelations were complete, the being of light showed me one final, crucial truth. I saw how the modern world's obsession with sexual identity and self-expression was actually a form of self-worship, the oldest sin, the desire to be our own gods. "The world tells you to live your truth," the voice explained, "but there is only one truth, and I am it. Those who choose their own truth over mine choose eternal separation from me." Then came the most profound moment of my experience. The being of light, Jesus Christ Himself, opened His arms to me, and I felt love so pure and powerful that it made every earthly love seem like a shadow. I understood then that this was what my heart had always been searching for, what no human relationship could ever provide. "Will you choose me?" He asked. "Will you take up your cross and follow me no matter the cost?" In that moment, I saw the full weight of what that choice would mean. I would have to end my relationship with Marcus, leave the community that had become my family, and face misunderstanding and hatred from those who once supported me. But I also saw the joy and peace that would come from living in God's truth. The being of light then showed me specific instructions for my return. I saw myself being baptized in the Orthodox Church, participating in the divine liturgy, receiving the holy mysteries. I saw myself sharing my testimony, not with hatred or condemnation, but with love and understanding for those still trapped in the lifestyle I had left. "Remember," the voice said, "you are not called to judge, but to speak truth in love. Many will reject your message just as they rejected me, but some will hear and be saved." I was shown how to respond to the arguments I would face. Claims about being born this way, accusations of hate and bigotry, questions about God's love. Each potential scenario was accompanied by the wisdom to address it with truth and compassion. The being of light then revealed something crucial about the timing of my experience. "This is not random," the voice declared. You are being sent back in this specific time because many of my children are being led astray. They need to hear your story. I saw how my testimony would reach people struggling with same-sex attraction, helping them understand that their worth wasn't tied to their sexuality, but to their identity as God's children. I saw how it would encourage parents praying for their LGBTQ plus children, giving them hope that God could reach even those who seemed furthest from Him. As the vision began to fade, I received one final message. Remember, my child, that my love for you never changed, even when you were running from me. But love sometimes means speaking hard truths. Go now and speak my truth without fear. When I opened my eyes in the hospital, everything was different. The fluorescent light seemed harsh after the divine radiance I'd experienced, but my heart was filled with a peace I'd never known before. Marcus was there, holding my hand, tears in his eyes. Looking at him, I felt only compassion. No romantic attraction, just a sincere desire for him to know the truth I'd learned. The doctors called my recovery miraculous. The type of heart condition I had usually results in death, but here I was, completely healed. They couldn't explain it, but I knew exactly why I'd been spared. Breaking up with Marcus was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I still love you, I told him, but not in the way I thought I did. I've encountered someone, greater than any earthly love. He didn't understand, of course. How could he? But I had to be faithful to what I'd been shown. My LGBTQ plus friends reacted exactly as the vision had prepared me for. Some called me a traitor. Others suggested I'd been brainwashed by religious trauma. A few even started an online campaign against me, calling me a self-hating gay man. But their words couldn't shake what I knew to be true. I found an Orthodox church and began the process of becoming a catechumen. The priest, Father Nikolai, listened to my story without judgment and guided me through the journey of joining the church. The day of my baptism, I felt that same divine presence I'd experienced during my NDE, confirming I was on the right path. My life now looks completely different. I've started a ministry helping others who want to leave the LGBTQ plus lifestyle, always emphasizing that God's love is greater than any earthly desire. I still face same-sex attraction sometimes, but I understand now that our struggles don't define us. Our response to them does. Some of my former friends have started to ask questions. They see the joy and peace in my life, so different from the artificial happiness we used to chase. A few have even started coming to church with me. Each time someone shows interest in the truth, I remember what I was shown about the spiritual battle for souls. My design business has changed too. I no longer take projects that promote messages contrary to God's truth. I've lost some clients, but God has provided new ones who respect my convictions. My work now focuses on helping churches and Christian organizations share their message effectively. The most beautiful part of this new life is the deep relationship I have with Christ through the Orthodox Church. The divine liturgy, the sacraments, the ancient prayers, they all connect me to that reality I glimpsed during my death experience. Every Sunday, as I receive the holy mysteries, I remember the perfect love I encountered and thank God for bringing me home. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell to never miss another powerful testimony of God's transforming love. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message of hope and truth.